Welcome to another episode of Cyrus Podcast. Today we have Michael Guthrie. I am super excited. When his bio came across my desk, I saw he owned over 8,000 doors, and is a huge capital raiser. I'm super excited to have you on the podcast, Michael. Thank you so much for making time to be here.
Thank you so much, Cyrus. I really appreciate you bringing me on today and look forward to hopefully adding some value and serving you in the multifamily space and in the capital raising space.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. What I like to really deep down dive into is like what actually makes a successful person tick. And part of that is like really understanding before you were able to get all of these doors, before you're able to raise all this capital, before you're able to do all this, like did you always want to get into real estate? Was that always your goal?
Absolutely. Yes, I wanted to own real estate. I started by owning an ATM company, and we started making a lot of money, and needed some place to park some of it other than in the stock market. So we started buying single family homes. And once we got up to like 7 or 8, and I had to turn that over to a property management company, it really became too much for me personally. So we ended up turning it over, and then a chunk of my profit was walking out the door on a monthly basis. So years and years and years down the road, we figured out how to get into multifamily, which is a lot bigger buildings with a lot more tenants.
So wait, rewind. So you were in the ATM business. What got you into the ATM business?
Well, that's a great question. We could probably go on for days on this. So I'm originally an X-ray tech and an MRI tech, and I was looking for a side hustle to make more money. So I was going to actually buy laundromats or self-service car washes, because I figured those two things could go do those on their own. Nobody had to be there, and I could make a little bit of money off of that. At the same time, owning ATMs came into my life in like 1996, excuse me. And we could sell ATM machines to a merchant, and I could make a little bit of the transaction fee in perpetuity. So here I am, I'm doing MRIs at UCSF in San Francisco. I'm selling ATMs on my days off to mom and pop convenience stores so I could start making money. And my wife's like, what's your plan with this ATM business? And I go, it was always sell more boxes. And she's like, sell more boxes. I go, yeah, every time I put a box or an ATM on location, we make 50 to $100 a month on every single one of those. And I go, and pretty soon I'm going to have 20, 30, 40. We ended up, when we exited the company last year, actually 2023 in May, we had a little over 8,300 ATM machines under contract.
Wow.
When we sold that company. So that little side hustle ended up becoming my main job after about 2 years, because my wife was like, always like, you better eat, sleep, and breathe what you do, or you're not going to do it. And she's like, you're not spending any of our money to do these things unless you're actually 100% involved in it.
Yeah, that is so cool. Wait, I'm just curious, how did you and your wife meet?
That's I was stationed in the military in Monterey, California, and me and a couple friends went to San Francisco for the weekend, and we met at a bar called the Holy Cow. She seen me from across the room, and her girlfriend thought I was attractive, and so she thought that her girlfriend met me. Her girlfriend actually met somebody else, but they came over and started hanging out with us, and it's been history ever since.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So see, that's pretty cool. So you were in the military beforehand.
Correct.
Then from being in the military, then you got out of the military. Did you go straight to school to become an X-ray tech? Is that what your timeline is?
I was an X-ray tech in the military, and
Okay.
after the military, I was doing X-ray when I went to MRI school to become an MRI tech. And the
Yeah, that's
MRI
right.
tech was like the creme de la creme of the X-ray world at the time.
Okay, so then you became an MRI tech. Then you're like, oh, well, I'm gonna start buying these boxes and putting them in people's convenience stores, and it's actually pretty interesting because like what I'm trying to figure out is like what made you even think like I want that side hustle, right? Like, was it always were you always like I want to reach XYZ goal, or was it like was there a certain point in your thought process that you said I need to make XYZ more money? Like, how did you come up like, what was the decision that you decided to do that?
My parents, growing up, each had one job. And when that company or facility or whatever decided that they didn't want to have them working there anymore, they were let go. So I knew if I only had one source of income at a hospital, a clinic, or whatever, if they decided to go a different direction and I wasn't part of that, I needed to have something else to support me and my family. And I had a daughter at the time. I still have a daughter. I had a daughter to support from my first marriage, and wanted to make sure that I was always able to cover my expenses and my expenses towards my daughter the whole time. So I never wanted to be strapped to one income.
Yeah,
And for me, the more ATMs I put out, that was more sources of income
yeah.
to me, which allowed me to better prepare for my future with my current wife Samantha and my daughter Alexis.
Ah, interesting. Isn't it so interesting that like how these things went from when we're young kids and whatnot, and we see our parents go through them, we're like, we definitely don't want that, and then we find a way to build our lifestyle to do so that we don't do that. It's like it's very interesting. So you saw your parents basically, and you saw they had one income, and then once that was done, it was like, oh shoot, now what are we gonna do? So you were doing your thing, and you're like, I need something else just in case. It was your security blanket, basically.
Absolutely.
And then when did you decide, like when was your transition from doing MRIs and X-rays to just doing the ATM?
That's always the question people get wrong. They think as soon as they start to do something and it starts to be successful, it's time to actually shift gears. And what I did is I waited until my ATM income was double per month my MRI X-ray income. Then I knew, and it was stable. I knew that I had enough security that I could actually leave my job and actually pursue a sales career of selling these ATM machines or placing them full time, and I didn't have to worry about how I was going to get paid.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So and the majority of the listeners on our podcast here are entrepreneurs. So they're going through the same exact process and thought process that you're going through. A lot of them are starting their business as a side hustle, right? And trying to switch it completely over to being a full-time career and full-time job. And you've had a very successful way of doing that. You not only made it a full-time job, you made it a full-time career, and then you exited the business as well, which is like what everybody's goal is when you start a business. I mean, what most people, successful entrepreneurs, that's your goal, right? Is to exit the business on at some point. Um, Talk to me about like, was that always your game plan? Because what it sounds like is like you really started as a as I just want this extra income. But was it always your thought process to once you get that extra income to then eventually have your company and sell the company, or did you start building it with just saying I just want an extra $1,000 a month from this ATM?
I first built it to start to have the extra income to actually start funding other opportunities for my retirement. So I never wanted to sell it. I wanted to write it into the sunset and never let it go. But then we all grow up. I mean, I started it when I was 29. I'm 56 today, and we sold it this year. I never anticipated actually selling it. And so many entrepreneurs, to go back just a little bit, is they're always told you have to burn the boats. You have to go all in. If you have something that's covering your bills today until you to your entrepreneurial journey takes you to where you're already at, I say continue with both. It's going to be a little more time, a little bit more effort on your part, but make sure you have security in where you're going before you actually burn the boat. Because once you burn the boat, there's no going back. And at least for me, and I felt the freedom. And what's funny is my daughter's a real estate agent. She's like, I love it. I'm my own boss. I make the rules. I say when, I say who, I say how much, I say all of that. And I'm like, so when a client calls, who's in charge? And she goes, the
Yeah.
client. And I go, same way with me. I have 8,200 plus clients that own those ATM machines that I support, and every one of those is my boss. So now I have more bosses than I ever thought I would have in my life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and we all go, well, I'm going to be the entrepreneur so then I can be the boss. Yes, you are partially the boss, but your client is truly your boss because they're the ones that are giving you the money that allow you to do what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting concept because it's like it's that which is why you were so successful in building that specific company is because, and why you're successful in everything that you're doing is because of the fact that you have that mindset of service, right? Like it is truly about that. There's a lot of people that become entrepreneurs and they don't have that thought process, and then they don't last long in this business because what ends up happening, they end up getting into this business or any business, right? And they start building it and they say, I want to be the boss. Well, I want to do my own thing whenever I want to. Well, then you don't have the discipline and consistency, which success is discipline and consistency over time, period. Right. So and that's what it really sounded like. It sounds like to me is like you chose you're going to work. And I think it was very different than, you starting your business when you were single with no kid, right? It's different starting a business when you have a kid. It's different to start a business when you have a family to take care of, right? Like you have to have that safety net. And you started that knowing that, and then you were disciplined in the fact that you were going to keep both jobs, even though it was probably really hard to handle those two jobs and balance that. Like, what was that like? That experience of being able to, like, you're working, I'm guessing, a 9 to 5, and then having to sell ATMs on your off time. Like, what was that even like
That it was
mentally?
mentally, uh, as long as you know what your end game is I'm going to actually have enough money to buy the house of my dreams. I'm going to be able to buy the car I want to buy when I want to buy it on my terms, not the terms that the dealers or whoever set up for you. You want to do everything you do with the end in mind. I didn't have the end in mind as far as the exit, but I knew how much I needed to earn to get to where I wanted to go. And I knew by placing X number of ATM machines in certain locations, the revenue that would come in from that would get me to my goals. And then all of a sudden it became bigger than I thought. I mean, I literally call it like the kahuna wave that the surfers really want to ride. And when that big wave just starts to curl over and start crashing down, we worked, and then then all of a sudden we were trying to hold on to the wave. The
Yeah.
business started to take off on its own. It had its own body, mind, and spirit. And for me and my wife, we just had to hang on and just be of service to every time that phone rang. And that's what led it from here to here. And then over time, we both got older and didn't want to do as much. And we didn't have to do as much. I mean, we literally did this business with 4 employees, me, my
Wow.
wife, an assistant in Tennessee, and an assistant in the Philippines. And we just brought the Filipino assistant on in the last couple years to help us
Wow.
really get organized for an exit. I mean, we've been planning the exit for about the last 5 years, but then we had the COVID and other things
Yeah.
happen. At the same time, we're buying real estate and
Yep.
buying multifamily and raising in multifamily. We seen where we were, what we could do, and how we could exit, and what was next.
Yeah.
Where was our next security blanket coming from? Are you
Yeah.
following me? So
Yep.
we built it to a spot where it was just cranking, but we took the cash flow from that and started investing in other things to create cash flow to replace this cash flow. So when we sold the cash flow, we weren't without cash flow.
That makes sense. And so now you sold. So now as you're building the ATM business, you're starting your real estate investing, right? You're buying single families, like you said. You're buying one single family, two single families, three, yada yada. You got to seven, and then you had this epiphany. Was it a realization because of the effort and time, or was it always a game plan to go into bigger multifamily?
I I did not know about multifamily till about 4.5 years ago. So that was never on the vision board. That was never on the
Yeah,
horizon. And what really happened was the banking system said you can't go out and borrow for more homes. We won't allow you. You're becoming a commercial enterprise in these rental units, and we will not lend you more money on more single family homes. So now I see why people do a lot of hard money borrowing, because the typical brick and mortar bank isn't going to loan over. At that time, I think they weren't loaning over on, if you had loans on more than 5 properties, we couldn't borrow. So we had two of them that were completely paid off. And then we paid off the third, and then we were trying to borrow again. And then we ran into a friend, and he explained to us about multifamily. We attended a seminar on a weekend. All of a sudden we were hooked. We were like, oh, here come the tax benefits. And literally that's how it really got started. And I haven't paid federal income tax legally for the last 4 years.
that's amazing. And you haven't paid federal income taxes legally, right, in the last 4 years. Um, when you were talking to, or when you went to that seminar and they talked to you about this, tax loophole and yada 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 about owning multifamily, blah blah blah. Was that the thing that like really hooked you, or was it the safety net on the back end that you'd be able to own? I mean, because look, like you you have 8,280 doors, 8,280 doors across multiple markets. Really, in the last 4 years, from what I'm hearing, that's phenomenal. That's amazing. And when people, I truly believe like there's something in successful people that ticks differently. And I want to know, did you hear that tax loophole and then dive in, or did you have somebody that showed you how to do this? Like, how did you go from 7 properties basically to 8,200, almost 8,300 doors?
So here's how we did it. We learned about the tax piece. We consulted our CPA. We took me off of payroll at our ATM company so I could spend more time doing real estate in theory and focus on that. So then I would be the real estate professional. We just took my salary and added it to my wife's, that we had a special ability to do that because we owned the company, and
Yeah.
made me a real estate professional. So all my K1 losses could go against our taxes. And I started in the business just wanting to be a limited partner and have a place to take cash from our ATM business and savings and put it into a investment vehicle that had the tax benefit and cash flow so that we could grow that. And as we did more and more of those, then I got asked to come in as a partner and help raise capital. I had no idea I could even raise a penny. And so that, I mean, literally, I didn't, because I never raised money on the ATM company. If I didn't have money to cash load my own ATMs, I went and sold more ATMs to businesses. Once I had enough money to place my own money in there, then I went out and talked to the business owners and wanted to place my own ATM. So I had a balance of trying to do that without having to bring on outside partners. I had
Yeah.
friends in both businesses that brought on outside partners, and they ended up regretting it because that outside partner had the cash And we know what the golden rules are. Those with the gold make the rules, and the people with the cash took a higher percentage of the company, and they actually forced my friends to sell their ATM businesses when they were ready to get out of it. And so now they
Wow.
had no cash flow and they didn't have any safety net. And it was up to the partner that made that decision. So I never wanted to bring on partners that made decisions on my behalf.
Yeah. So you say I never thought I could raise money. You raised over 65 million for syndication in the last, what, 12, 14 months?
That was all in 2022, all in 1 year
In
across
one
12
year.
separate deals.
So across 12 months, you raised 65 million. It's not
12
that
months,
bad,
12 deals. It's not a bad start. I mean, so and here's the scoop. You're like today with you and me,
Yeah.
people will listen to what we're talking about and they're listening to the sincerity, the honesty, the humbleness, the truthfulness in our voices, and they will trust us. If you and I were sitting here smoking cigars, having a whiskey and having this conversation, they might not trust us as much. But one thing with capital raising that I've learned over the last 4 years is regardless of where you're at in your life, you're always being watched and interviewed by your friends, family, business acquaintances, you name it. And being in the ATM space, we were fiduciaries of a truckload of people's money. Whether we wanted to think of it that way or not, I think about it that way today. But we literally moved 20 to $50 million every month from the ATM to the ACH to back to the bank, and accounted for it to the penny every single month for 28 years.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that builds a long history of trust and reliability, and having that on your resume will help. It helps to go a long way. So you want to be building trust and loyalty along the way your whole life.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad used to tell me this when I was little. It's like your word is everything, right? Like it's as soon as you you say something, you have to do it. Like there's no going back on that, right? Because that's all we have at the end of the day. And that's also one of the biggest life hacks in general. Like your relationships and the quality of relationships that you have can open so many doors that people don't grasp on. And you've obviously been able to understand that and build success through relationships, because you don't just go to a random person and say, give me, you know, $20 million for a raise. It's probably through a previous relationship. At some point you met somebody, and so on and so forth. And then it's proving a product and having a result, and then being able to rinse and repeat that result, right?
100%.
Because that's what really matters when you're raising capital. Is you can raise capital once, but can you raise it over and over again? And you've done it over 12 separate times. So that's showing me you're just doing a really great job, you
Well,
know?
and yeah, and I did when I raised on my first raise, my partners are like, one of them said she could raise 1 million, the other one said she couldn't raise anything. And so that left me $5.5 million to raise. And trust me, I was literally, I did not think I could do it. And I got on the phone with my coach and I'm explaining what's going on, what I have to do. And he's like, with that attitude, you're not going to raise a penny. He goes, how do you know the first person you get on the phone with isn't going to write that check for the full 5.5 million you need to raise? And I go, I don't know that. And he goes, in the state you're in and the thought process you're having right now, no one's going
Yeah,
to write you a check for 5 grand. He goes, so you need to get your head in gear and know that you've proven yourself to a ton of people over time, over and over and over again, and go in with that mindset. And he goes, and those checks are going to just fall in your lap.
I love that.
And 4 days later, we had raised $5.5 million.
That's amazing. It's so interesting, like this whole thought process, this whole mindset, right? Like you just shift your mindset and look at what you're able to accomplish. It's amazing. That's amazing. So look, you've obviously crushed it. You've done so well, and I see it as like, last 4 years, you're kind of just getting started. Like, what's next?
What's next? Right now, for me, is patience. waiting for the appropriate opportunities, because I don't like to put my friends and family and investors into bad opportunities. Yeah, we're in some deals right now where we were on floating debt, but we have not had a capital call. I don't see any capital calls coming. We're very rich in our savings in all of our deals, so that we don't have to do that. And we're just continuing to prepare for what 2024 and 2025 have. I think if we can survive till 25, and I don't see any roadblocks unless we these apartment complexes empty down to zero, that we're going to have that kind of a problem. But we're prepared for problems if they were to occur. And when we get to the other side where these interest rates start to retract and straighten themselves out, I think we're going to be in great shape. I do like triple nets. I bought a couple triple nets in 2023 with some friends. We paid 100% cash because the terms we were getting from the banks were bad, and the people selling us the deals were mad that we didn't go with their lender, and we decided to pay cash because I'm certain they were getting a back end kickback on that. But
Yeah,
when you pay 100% cash for an asset, you're in control, and it
yeah,
cash flows day one, not 6 months, not 9 months once it's
yep,
stabilized. It's stable because you now own it 100%. So triple net's next for me. I've been doing some top line lending, um, deploying some capital into hard money opportunities. And I'm raising right now on a 104 unit deal in San Antonio. Interesting thing, these guys bought it 2 years ago in November, $11.5 million. We're buying it today for 11. They put over $800,000 into it, so they're
wow,
losing almost $2 million to get out.
yeah,
And it's a great opportunity and a great workforce housing. And I'm patient. People are like, I want
yeah,
you to help me. I want you to raise with me. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. And I'm like, you have to bring the right deal. The good news
yep.
is we don't have to buy. And
I
so
love
that's a
that.
great position. That's a great position to be in. Just be patient. There's going to be amazing opportunities. And when it's
Yep.
time, we jump in. When it's not time, we just sit back.
I love that. I love that. It's I always say you try to make money fast, money leaves fast, right? So just be patient and follow, you know, when it's right, it's right, and you'll it'll be there. Um, now with one last question for you. You had to
Sure.
give one piece of advice for someone that was in your shoes, getting out of the military, being an MRI tech, trying to think about, I want to start a side hustle. I'm not really sure. They're on the fence. Like, what piece of advice would you give them?
Find something you're passionate about. And it's funny, is last weekend I was in San Antonio at a friend's for New Year's, and we met some people I'd never met before because they were other people's friends. And
Yeah,
they're like, how did you get to where you're at? And I go, I found something I really enjoyed doing, and the money found me. So
I
do
love that.
something that you love to do and do it well, add value more than anyone else, and the money will follow. People think they need to get the value out as quickly as they put value in. And I think the more you layer on the value, the more layers of revenue are going to come your direction. It's the get rich quick thing. It really it doesn't work for anybody unless you win the lottery. And we see as quickly as they made that money, they lose it as quickly as they got it. So take your time, find something you're passionate about, and the money will find you.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Michael, for being on today. If people want to connect with you, how do they connect with you?
Uh, Great question. I always like to give people my cell phone number. I'll give you my cell and hopefully you'll publish it. It's 509-270-6701, 509-270-6701. Text me and I'll give you a link to my calendar. We can hop on, have a discussion, whether you want to talk about real estate, capital raising, triple net leasing, or you just want to get to know who I am and figure out what makes me tick. Happy to hop on with you.
Love that. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for being on. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.